Welcome back to the Cascade Rifle YouTube channel. I'm Colonel Broyles, and I am joined with the great Major Hal. He's helping me out with, you're going to see a lot of different new technology tactics. So that's going to help me, get into the 21st century and look better. So, hey, this episode, what we want to talk about is, and build on from the last episode where we introduced JFC Fuller's mental, moral, and physical spheres of war. Now, I'm going to use, if you haven't watched Dan Carling much, he always talks about, if you've missed some of the previous episodes, I encourage you to go back to episode 2 because we're building on it. But if you're a free spirit and just want to jump right in, then by all means, continue on. All right, John, so what we're talking about, thanks for helping me. We're going to talk about, get you reintroduced where we've been. So our effort is to fight, outnumbered, and win. But to do that, we first have to understand that war occurs in 3 spheres. So you have the mental sphere, where what we talk about is the aim, why you're going to fight, what is the reason you're doing it. And that's where this is where plans are schemed, this is where they imagine an outcome, and this is where willpower comes from. Then, with that, in a not war environment, that will typically translate right into the physical sphere, where people take action, where they will move, they will protect, they'll strike, things like that. But in a war, what makes war unique is when danger has presented itself and people are fearing for their life, then the moral sphere emerges. And this is the realm of human instinct. And there's the human instinct of fear, self-preservation, when you feel like you have to run away for your life, like a bear is chasing you. There's also the opposite, where you're going to stand and fight, where you self-assert yourself. Then there's the instinct of self-sacrifice. So, if someone's attacking your wife, you would fight. Your wife, when they're, protecting their kids, mama bear time, right. That is self-sacrifice. So this is kind of the realm that pulls the reason to fight. So too much fear, people panic and run. Too much self-assurance, they custer at the little bighorn. And typically what we're looking for is the courage to push through the moral sphere to take action. So the key to understand as we move forward is this thing called systems thinking. Have you ever been introduced to systems thinking?
Sure. Sorry. Physical education major, all right? I had fun in college. All right, sorry.
The reason I'm bringing up systems thinking, it's the way you have to think about things to fight this way. Systems thinking is this idea that everything feedbacks on itself. Everything has a feedback loop, meaning that just because you go fight and then you have the courage to do it and then you're fighting your battle, that doesn't mean that's it. Because down here in the physical, people start taking casualties, things happen that you don't count on, and therefore the feedback loop will come out and could affect greater fear. Or maybe you're winning, and so you have greater self-assurance. And that moves up here. Maybe your willpower strengthens, your imagination becomes greater, we can achieve even greater things, and then maybe we change our aim a little bit, where at first we thought we'll take that hill, now we're going to even go and take the capital or whatever. So this continually has a feedback loop. It's a system. Just like your body has the heart, the circulation, so on and so forth. Does that help?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, yeah, go ahead.
Question. So for all the guys out there who were never infantrymen deployed, I was an MI guy deployed, poking it up on Bagram. Can you replicate the moral instinct out of CTC? Have you ever seen that happen?
Kind of. Okay. So the closest you can do it at training is you have to introduce stress. So the closest I've seen it done is when you have evaluators, sure. That your kind of career's on the line a little bit. You get like any of you S3s out there have done like a what I call the S3 ex-eval, the combined arms rehearsal, and all the generals are watching, so they'll be a little more amped up when it's competitive. So that's why I really like competitive training, because competitiveness, when you want to win, this starts emerging a little bit. I think the closest I've ever felt that replicated a gunfight, how you feel right before the gunfight, is at airborne school. If I was king for a day, I would make that part of basic training. I go basic training 18, everybody goes to airborne school. Not, it's great to jump out of a plane, but what really emerges with jumping out of a plane, the moral sphere starts to emerge in that point. So when you're sitting in that aircraft and the door opens, and you're all well trained, you think you're ready to go, and all of a sudden that door opens for the first time, and you get that jitters, and you get that feeling, and you're like, man, am I doing this? Am I really doing this? And you start walking to the door, then you have to push past the self-preservation and then have the courage to keep going. This kind of emerges. And I think that's one of the best parts of airborne school, is that it helps inoculate you against that feeling that happens in combat. So I've seen that emerge at probably airborne school, and then, like I said, in training events where there's a lot of stress, a lot of fatigue's not the same thing. It's when you're really fearing for maybe your career, or you're fearing for your you're not getting into humiliation. How does that help?
Yes, sir. And just I want to let the viewers know, I'm not wearing them, but I'm not a leg. I am airborne qualified, so that exactly makes sense.
I was looking for it, by the way. Hey, a lot of this content I'm bringing, before I move forward, I'm bringing, this is probably one of the best books you can get. It's basically John Boyd on discussion on winning and losing. And also I'm referencing J.F.C. Fuller's the Science and Foundation of War. Okay, so now that we've kind of introduced this, what I want to show is we've talked through this last video. So what do you do about it? Okay, so great, that's fascinating. Well, in order to fight outnumbered and win, what I want to focus on for this video is really, how do you attack the mental sphere of war? So as John Boyd said, is if you can change their minds, you can change their behavior. And he also further stated that, remind people that terrain doesn't fight wars, machines don't fight wars, at least not yet, but people fight wars. And it's the minds that you have to get into in order to actually win a war. Now, one of my favorite examples is, if you think of the Civil War, there was so much bloodshed, there was so much devastation, there was so much, but when did the actual Robert E. Lee had enough? It's when he met with Grant and signed a piece of paper acknowledging that he is tapping out. What ended the Japanese was when they actually signed a document on the Missouri. So I bring that up because there's a perception that you can kill your way to victory. And we've found throughout that isn't the case. So how do you attack the mental sphere of war? So how do you do this? So basically what we've done is people have a reason to go into war, or their aim, what their goal is. If you read a book by Shironabe, he will say the aim is what you direct your effort toward. If you destroy their aim, you really can bring the enemy to their knees. So it's the aim, you have to go, why they're fighting. So what you're trying to get after is hopelessness. When you can create in the mind of your adversary, it is hopeless to continue. And Robert E. Lee realized further fighting was hopeless. That is when he was defeated. When the Japanese in 1945 realized that further fighting would just be hopeless, then that's when they have surrendered, and that's when the fighting stops. But as long as there's hope, they will continue to fight. It's interesting, a great example to me of this is when in 1776, when the British came over to suppress the rebellion. What the British didn't understand is they thought, well, that the Continental Army would capitulate if they kept taking terrains. They take New York, they go through New Jersey, and they actually take the capital, Philadelphia. And they were surprised that the rebellion didn't stop, because what they didn't realize is Washington's army was still out there. Even though they weren't winning, there still was hope. That hopelessness didn't happen yet. So there's the goal, is to induce hopelessness. So how do you get there? How do you induce hopelessness? Well, we'll get into that in further videos, but first you have to understand is you have the reason, and then they have imagined, the enemies imagine what will happen, the grand outcome, what they hope to achieve. They have to start imagining that further resistance would be humiliating. If they continue, it's not gloriful to continue, it's actually further humiliation. Humiliation is probably the most potent human emotion there is. People will almost do anything to avoid humiliation. So then if you have hopelessness, you try to do the imagined further humiliation, their willpower will dissipate, because what you're trying to do, the opposite of willpower, is indecision. So, or lack of a choice. They feel like there is no further choice than to capitulate. And they feed on each other. And they're informed, as I said, by the moral sphere of war and then what's happening in the physical sphere. So, does that make sense?
Yes, sir. And I was actually I'm not the biggest history buff, but I am a sci-fi nerd. Have you ever seen or read the book, the Dune series?
No.
So
There might be a meme out there, I realize, but I haven't read it.
But in Dune 2, at the end of that, the movie and in the book, this plays out perfectly what Paul Atreides did, striking fear with the Fremen against the Sarkatar, which is like the SF world, or the SF level of units. He induced hopelessness with the enemy, shock and awe, imagine it, and making them, humiliating them as well. And I never really thought about that just by watching the movie. And it forced the Emperor, who was the evil one, against Paul Atreides. He didn't know what to do, and he was basically just held hostage. So I know that's not American, it's not real, but it's sci-fi. I love sci-fi, so sir.
I do too. I'm a Star Wars fan. Well, and so what I would take from this is, so as we get into this, not only do you have to detect the enemy's mental sphere of war, but you understand they're going to be attacking yours. So you have to protect it and strengthen it and defend it. So again, when you're going to read, that's why it's so important to give soldiers the reason why they're doing this.
Sure.
Without a purpose, remember, it'll be depleted as they run into fear, as they run into all the different things happen. That's going to be depleted, right? You have to help them see in their head the outcome we're trying to achieve. And it's like I tell my officers all the time, if you haven't said it in 3 days, you haven't said it at all. You have to remind people because that is constantly under attack. They're imagining many things as things go well and things don't go well. You have to realize, strengthen their willpower. These combined will give them the will to achieve it, right? And it has to push through the moral sphere of war. So just as we're trying to induce hopelessness, as we're trying to help them imagine it's humiliating and continue and induce indecision, that there's a lack of choice, our adversary is doing the same thing. And all of this is informed by what's happening in the physical sphere and what's happening in the moral sphere. All right, so we're going to stop there for this. For the next video, we'll get into the moral sphere of war. How do you attack it and how do you defend it? All right, hey, thanks.
Sounds good, sir. I'll bring a notebook next time.
Okay.
I gotta write all these notes down. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you.